friends. And with Australia, they have the speeds that you're allowed to drive. Your maximum speed is different for a learner than it would be for someone with a full license, which is kind of a bummer, right? How fast can you go on I-80 here? What's the speed limit? 65? Okay, in Idaho, I-84 is now posted at 80 miles per hour, which is kind of good because that's a lot of rock, you know. So if you're going through Idaho, you can drive faster. But if you're a learner, it would dial you down to like 65, 70 miles an hour, as well as when you can drive. Why do they do this level of safety around driving? Any ideas why? What's the penalty for a teen with a heavy vehicle driving at high speeds without real good control of it? What could happen? Die for them as well as harm others, right? And it's pretty clear that we say that needs to happen. And here's the hard thing about driving is you can't go from one day you don't know how to drive to the next day you've got all this responsibility on their hands. And so what they're doing, and I think what a lot of people realize, is that I better take steps to help them understand the gravity of what they do as well as the skill set to be able to navigate that. Makes sense, doesn't it? So most parents, when they talk to me about technology, they say, should I buy my kid their own phone? That's kind of an on and off switch. Does that make sense? They either have a phone or they don't have a phone is kind of how the discussion goes. They either get a video game console or they don't get a video game console. And part of what we're exploring is anyone that handles a dangerous object, anyone that handles an object that requires responsibility, typically you have to be taught how to do it. That's how this world works. And so part of the challenge that we have is if our kids are going to live in a world of technology and be able to thrive without harming themselves and harming others with that technology, how do we get from the point that they start to the point that they're able to be responsible? And that's a challenge. And just when you figure it out, you're going to discover that child number 2 doesn't work at all like child number 1. You know, and it's hard, difficult, challenging work. There's no shortcut to it. People believe that there's like innate ability for kids to navigate technology. I think some of that's because we use crazy words about like this is a tech generation and they get it from birth. Kids have this magnetism and kind of a natural fascination with technology, but their ability to choose when to use it, what to view, and how to turn it off, that's a taught skill. That's a learned skill. And it actually does make me sad. I will say I'm fairly traditional when it comes to, I follow like the recommendations for, let's not do screen time with little people. You know, I think that's just a helpful guideline. As they build it up, there's some really clear recommendations around that. And so this tech picture scares me a little bit. I was traveling in San Francisco airport, and okay, so here's the thing. Have you ever seen like something that you really want to show as your slides for your presentations, but you really shouldn't be taking pictures of people's children? It's kind of a, you know, it's kind of a dangerous ground. There was a child with their stroller, their pram, with a like a flexible iPad holder in front of the baby's face. And part of me is like, why is that necessary? You know, why would a baby need that? And part of me is like, it must be necessary enough that people are profiting off that and using that, you know, as a norm. And what we say is really, how do you develop, recognize that babies might not need tech. A lot of times parents might want it more than the kids because it makes the kids quiet, you know, and kind of hides them. And so noisy babies, if you have a noisy baby here, fantastic. I'd rather have that than a baby that's just kind of distracted all the time. There's a model that we use at Project Patch. I've seen some other places use it. It starts from birth all the way to adult. When does someone become an adult? 21? Okay. 18? What's the difference between 18 and 21? Other than 3 years? Alcohol, marijuana? What? Handguns? Maybe. I don't know. It depends on the state. Yeah. When they act like one? Interesting. There'd be some people in trouble, including me some days in Israel. It fascinates me because adulthood is one of those things that a lot of times you hear people talk about age. You know, when you're 16, What can you do at 16 that you couldn't at 15? Drive. At 17, you can go to maybe some movies that you couldn't. 18, war, vote. 21, substances. What happens at the magical age of 25? Rent a car. Which honestly is so much fun, and so why do they wait for 25? Less likely to smash it up, right? Yeah, should be. Yeah. I've had so many rental cars that are a little too nice. But that's the idea is we have chronological, but here's the thing is that you've met people that are chronologically aged, but emotionally relationship immature, right? Impulsive, explosive emotionally. You know what I'm talking about, right? And then you've probably met some young people that are like, wow, they really are thinking pretty clearly. And so part of the thing that we look at is that adulthood, part of how we explore it as an organization is this is someone that is making decisions, taking responsibility for making decisions, and if it's a bad decision, what do? Take responsibility and make amends for it, fix it. Does that make sense? Not push it off and blame someone else, not blame the parents, not do anything else, but take responsibility and fix it. The repercussions and learning. Does that make sense? And so are adults perfect? No. Adults don't do everything perfect, but when they mess up, they take responsibility and make amends and move forward. And so that little nuance is interesting to me. And I think it's other cultures do way better job of managing progress toward independence. Rites of passage of what does it mean to be growing up, not just aging. And I think there's a lot of value to that. Even Jesus experienced some of these things that we don't have in our culture. You're looking at what does it mean to grow up and become a man. Can you imagine if we had the boys sitting with mommy and suddenly now they're sitting with dad and the men? That's a progress, right? For a girl to become a woman, some of those sorts of things, to talk about it, to deal with it is really healthy. So we're looking at that process of how do you become a responsible adult? And really from a technology standpoint, you've got kids all along this realm, and some of you are here because your grown kids are still not at that adult age, right? Not taking responsibility. On this other side, we've got from not responsible to fully responsible. And so when a baby is born, what are they responsible for? Crying, alerting you, right? But even you're like, what are you crying for? They're babies, right? They're not able to do things. And I will say, as adoptive dad, my youngest that came into my care was at 8 months, and so I never had the baby. But what I understand is most parents around 4 months of age his ordered thinking isn't quite as developed, and so as a parent we have to provide a little bit more structure, some more what we call since the kid lacks self-discipline, we add some scaffolding, we add some structure to help him succeed. And so that's chore charge. Sitting there when my kids were really young,